you mentioned the election, and you've got some content on your page which uh, shows you analyzing some of the news that people were asking for divorces because their loved ones, the ones they're in a relationship with, had voted for Trump. We've also seen all over the internet in the days following the Trump 2.0 election, people performatively screaming in anger at what's happening. And then I suppose you've also got lots of content which, as you talked about, is trying to get to the bottom of language. And I think when we talk about critical thinking, maybe people don't know what it is. That reflection of language toward reality is critical thinking. If people want to do it, what is it? Is it then questioning and holding the ability to get closer to reality and what the language means?
I think critical thinking is you're navigating the stories that make up the world in real time as you encounter them. And this is the object. I used to think, because I've been thinking about this a lot, and my thoughts on this have evolved more towards the emphasis on story and the reality that the world is made up of. We make sense of the world through stories, these competing stories. So in these YouTube videos, Bill Maher versus, Tyson, or who, it's two competing stories. It allows us to, and then I make the parallel, like in that video where Neil deGrasse Tyson, in that video, that's really what's happening there. And that's what I'm trying to emphasize, and I make the comparison to mathematics, sort of, where mathematicians, they don't invent anything. They're discovering something about reality. And mathematics gives them a way to articulate the fabric of reality that cannot be otherwise articulated through these symbols and numbers. It's just this language. So words are just the tools that we use. If you think about the analogy I use, is if you imagine boats floating on the surface of the ocean, the boats are the words. Everything that's really meaningful and interesting is below the surface, subtext, the elusive, intangible. Everything, we're trying to use those tools, use the mathematics to communicate. So when a mathematician makes a mathematical breakthrough, they're not creating something, they're uncovering something that already exists, like an archaeologist. So there is that everything beneath, like the artifacts, that's the elusive, intangible, that's reality, and that's the thing that people feel is under assault or being manipulated often, whether it's through media or whatnot. And that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. I think it transcends politics.
Do you think that's what you were driven by with the channel at a subconscious level, and it's later on that you've come to the conclusion, as you were just explaining there, this symbolic nature of being able to see the world and perceive the world, and that there is an objective reality in which to discover? It's not about creating anything, it's about discovering it through observation, analytics. Is that something that's come more clearly to you now? Do you think you were pushed toward what you were doing because you just felt like something was off in the culture and you wanted to look at it, or was there more design to it than that?
Well, I've always been fascinated by the idea of being able to detect these patterns. And I'm terrible at mathematics. I'm not a mathematician, but I have a great admiration for, especially movies about mathematics. A Beautiful Mind is one of my favorite movies. I really liked Oppenheimer, the movies that delve into science. And so that's where the Secret Scholars name, Secret Scholar Society idea came from, way before any viral video. It was creating a narrative film around a story that explores that idea. And I ended up making just a little practice short film with that other teacher. I wouldn't even call it a short film. It was just the two of us with a camera. So it's so low production value and coincidentally that was posted about a month before all this began. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there was that fascination with those that do pursue the patterns of reality.
What perhaps you've been reflecting on this. I suppose you search for patterns. Have you found yourself trying to conform your life to a particular pattern or symbolic structure?
I have come to can be convinced that there is this idea of God. We reduce that. When you say God, people, it's easy to dismiss because people imagine this man in the clouds, this everything we can't articulate. That's what's beneath the surface, the elusive intangible. It's what was prior to the Big Bang. And I do believe Jordan Peterson is correct about, I think he has the best approach to this. When you live as though God exists, you will see results. The very fact that by doing so yields results, well, there's something there. Well, shoot, I forgot what your question was, but so, how do I order my life? So I find myself, and when I'm making these videos, that's a reoccurring theme as well, is that I keep noticing people bring about their own destruction by trying to trick reality or manipulate reality or ignore it or be untruthful, or living as though God doesn't exist. And it's okay to assassinate a CEO of a healthcare company because you don't like healthcare. It would be easy to give into that emotional response, but that's the opposite. That's the opposite of living as though God exists. Not when we choose to do it, but it's happening right now. We're seeing there's these two different patterns, these ways. So that's how I structure. It's more trying to live in accordance with the laws of reality. And I do believe nothing can improve a person's life more than first recognizing that there are laws of reality, and then it's living in accordance with those. It's like being a sailor in a sailboat, going back to that analogy, and you're trying to sail against the wind. First, you have to recognize that there's currents, there's winds. You need to know how to adjust the sail so it catches the wind so you can get where you want to go. Versus those that think there is no objective truth, there is no wind. Really, it's not. Maybe that's a bad analogy.
No, it's a good analogy. I think analogies, metaphors are helpful to be able to try and get to the bottom of things, because what you're trying to describe is not something that we could put in a bullet point summary. And if you tried to, it would be challenged. But it's almost like there's a gestalt to it, right? It's like something that you sense, that you can sense the whole of something